Good morning. Happy Monday. My name is Miles Bassett, and this is Ask Wildman, an open Q&A for marketers, technologists, business owners, or anyone that just wants to jump in and say hi. My team and I are here every week to answer your questions. Anything you want to ask us. We're primarily focusing on technology, on marketing, advertising, entrepreneurship, business ownership. But if you just want to jump in and ask us how our day is, you're more than welcome to do that. We're streaming live right now to our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and to our Twitch account as well. So pick one there and make sure to tune in every week. We're live streaming now Mondays at 11. We changed it, so it is Monday at 11. And if you're not watching this live, you can still get your questions in by emailing us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. I do have that email scrolling below me in the crawler there, so just grab that and send us your email. We'll either just answer it right then and there, or we'll use it for our subject matter for next week's live stream. Again, if you have any questions or you just want to jump on and say hi, please throw those questions in the comments below, and we will answer those questions live as they come up. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get this show on the road. To do that, I'm going to have a little help from my friend Mike Hanna. There we go. Hello, Mike.
Good morning, Miles. Yes, indeed, I am here. Nothing we can't do without a little bit of help from our friends. Good morning, sir. How in the heck are you?
I'm doing well with a little help from my friend Caffeine right now. Cheers.
Cheers, yeah.
Virtual cheers, mate.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Yeah, shout out to everybody drinking that good stuff out there, that coffee.
Well, we made this a Monday morning show, so I'm hoping that we have some.
I don't know whose idea that
in there
was.
Somewhere. Yeah, well, we're here now. Yeah, so like I said, this is an open Q&A. Anyone watching out there, I've seen a couple of people jumping in. If you have any questions, Wildman Web Solutions is a digital marketing agency based here in Lawrence, Kansas. I am sort of the tech side of the house. Mike here is the advertising marketing side of the house. So together, hopefully we can answer some of your questions. We started this show over a year ago now, the beginning of the pandemic we're having. And everyone started going virtual very quickly, and some for the very first time needed to start getting their business online and leveraging that online presence in ways they hadn't before. So we were getting all sorts of questions as the local digital people as to how to do that. So we decided to do this show, answer some of those frequently asked questions, and also just provide that resource so that anyone out there in our market or wherever you happen to be, if you have some questions about getting your business online or more fully getting it online or leveraging whatever online presence that you have, we are here to help with that. So please throw those questions in the comments below, and we'll get those as they come in. I did want to start the show here with a conversation that I think I've had with three different clients on completely separate occasions over the last week alone. I know it's something I brought up here before. I've talked about on this show before. I've written an entire article on it on our website. If you haven't checked that out yet, we've got a bunch of useful articles over at wildmanweb.com, including this one. And Mike, you might remember this conversation here, but talking with a new client about hosting, website hosting.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very frustrating thing to me as a web developer coming through here. I understand how all of it works, and I get that that's not everyone's cup of tea, but everyone likes to cheap out on the hosting. And if I can tell you one thing here, if you walk away with anything, any bit of information from this show at all, I'm going to say do not. There's a lot of places you can cut corners, and this is not one of them. The hosting of your website is the housing of it. It is where it lives. And if you are not giving it a suitable habitat, if you are not giving it a nice protected environment, you can't expect it to run well, to stay healthy, to last long. And there's a ton of, I'm going to call economy hosting packages out there. We're paying 4 cents a year for sharing a single file with a million other people. And you can get some really cheap stuff out there, some really affordable things that market themselves as real, reliable products. And it's just going to cause you all of the headaches in the world later. So that's normally when we get people, they come to us and they're like, why is everything blowing up? Why is everything, there's just malware everywhere. And then we end up having to fix everything up and migrate it over to something. So I just wanted to go over some basic hosting knowledge here real quick. I'll go ahead and put a link to our article here on the website. This really goes over everything. But things to watch out for when it comes to hosting your website, hosting your online application, or anything that you have on the web, it needs hosting on some level here. I'm going to go ahead and grab this link. So there's a couple of different pieces that go into a website. There's the hosting, there's the domain, and then there's the actual site itself. These things all kind of get confused and muddled along the way, but those are three distinct parts to a website. The website files, that is the site itself. That's what makes it look how it looks. That's what gives you the content, the text, and the images, and tells it how to lay itself out, tells it when to throw that annoying pop-up up there. All of that is part of the website files itself. And that really just is files, text files, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and probably a bunch of other nonsense. And that just needs to be stored somewhere on a computer that knows how to run those files, how to interpret them, and therefore display them. So we start with those website files. That's when, if you're coming to someone like us or another professional designer or developer, that's what they're creating for you. It's the site files. Those then need a place to live. That's the hosting. So at that point, you are paying for literally a physical place somewhere for this to be stored. That's living on a machine somewhere in the world. There's one file on that machine that is all of your stuff. Then you get the domain. The domain is the www.wildmanweb.com. That is your domain. That is the address, just like the address on your house. It tells people how to get there. More importantly, it tells internet browsers like Chrome and Internet Explorer and Firefox where your website is on that server. So if you type that in, the browser says, okay, I know where that is. I'm going to navigate you there, and it's going to point to that file on some machine somewhere in the world. That is your hosting. Now, focusing more in on the hosting, there are different types of website hosting. You've got shared, dedicated, virtual, and now the new kind of player in town is cloud hosting. That first one there is kind of the most common. This is shared hosting. That's what I was describing before. This is all of those economy hostings out there. And this kind of comes on a scale of not so good to really, really, really bad. The idea here is that there's a single machine that is segmented off artificially in there. And you just have one file on a particular machine. You are sharing that space with others. This is multi-tenant hosting, if you will. So this comes with a couple of different problems. One, everyone on that machine is taking up resources there. So you're not going to have that much processing power. There could be some speed problems there. Your site's not going to be able to necessarily do quite as much just because there's only a certain amount of resources on that machine that's being shared. There's also some security issues there, in that you have multiple tenants, you have a bunch of people on that, and if one site on there isn't necessarily 100% secure or has some problems and lets something in that you don't want, it's now one step away from your site. So even if you are being perfectly careful and making sure that everything is secure, you can have other people exposing different security problems for you. And finally, each of these servers is kind of set up to be this one size fits all. You should have a machine that knows what your website is doing and is provisioned accordingly to whatever it is that you're trying to do with the technologies used to house your site. On a shared hosting platform, they're just sort of configured to do anything for anyone. So it ends up being this one size fits all, but one size doesn't really fit anyone very well. So obviously there's going to be a benefit to having your own system there that's configured exactly for you. That brings us to dedicated hosting. So that's similar to shared hosting, except for you get the entire machine yourself. One site, one server, one machine here. This gets pretty expensive pretty quick because you are taking up all that space and all those resources from the hosting company, but it eliminates most of the issues that we were seeing with the shared hosting. You've got this machine set up exactly for you. You've got all of the resources of that machine. There's no one else there. So assuming that you are setting things up properly and everything's secure, this is a highly secure way of doing hosting. For dedicated hosting, this is something that you might want to do if you have something that needs a lot of dedicated processing power. So you're not just doing a website, but you're doing a web application. This is an actual piece of software running online. Dedicated hosting is probably going to be the direction that you want to go. Then you get to a virtual server or a virtual private server. This is sort of a halfway point between those two things, where they've set up a single machine or a single server and created several virtual machines on it. So you can configure each of those machines independently to optimize performance of whatever application that you have on there. You are still sharing resources, you're still sharing services there, but you can configure it a little bit better. You have a little bit more control over everything, and it's going to be a little bit more personalized to you. The last one here is kind of the most recent player on the stage here, and that is cloud hosting. Without going into too much depth here, the entire idea is that you have things decentralized. The cloud is just a ton of different machines all working together to act as one giant computer, one giant server. So if you are cloud hosting, you are actually storing your websites on, or your files on lots of different machines. This means that they can do something called load balancing, where if someone is all of a sudden taking up a lot more resources, they can shift how the resources of all these different machines are allocated appropriately so that whoever needs it at that time gets it, and then someone else who isn't using as much can use a little bit less. So you don't have as many performance problems there. It's really, really, really secure because no one machine has any of, doesn't have the entirety of anyone's sites on there. So even if one thing is compromised, 99% of your site or your files are elsewhere. So it's not going to cause much of a problem for your site, and they can swap out that machine without, completely taking down everyone's sites that were on that machine. This is fairly affordable, and it can also be vertically scalable. And by that, I mean, if you only need, a tiny amount of storage right now, but you're going to need more later, you don't want to have to pay for that massive amount of storage while you only have a little bit of traffic or a little bit of processing right there. With cloud storage, you can just sort of add more and can keep adding more resources on top of something without shifting to another server or shifting to another plan or another provider. So you only pay for what you need at the time that you need it. So it's got a lot of advantages there, which is why it is rocking the world of hosting right now. It's the most popular thing. Finally here, I'm just going to hit a couple of keywords here that you need to be looking for when you're looking for hosting and you're maybe trying to decide which one of those things is right for you or which provider is right for you. The first one here is just file storage. They're going to tell you what your file storage limit is, and that's just what it sounds like. It's just literally the storage capacity that you have. Depending on what you want to do here, this may or may not be a very key factor for you. If you're just doing a business website that says, here we are, here's what we do, here's how to contact us, then you can do that with pretty minimal storage space. If you're doing something a little bit bigger, you're doing a media site, or you're doing blogs or something where you're putting a lot of new content out there, lots of image content and videos and stuff, that's going to start to take up more space. So you may need to take that into account. Bandwidth, you can think of that as how many people need to access your website at once. So when you're looking at different hosting providers, they're going to tell you what their different bandwidth limitations are and their different offerings. If you are going to be a very high visibility site and you're planning on a bunch of people being on your site at the same time and utilizing it at the same time, bandwidth is a metric that you're really going to want to look at. If you think that you're only going to have a couple of people on it at once, this isn't going to be a super high traffic site, maybe you don't need to worry about it too much. Backups. Backups is a very, very important one. Some hosting providers provide automatic backups taken of your site every so often. I think that's becoming more and more kind of industry standard. I think that's incredibly valuable because you never know what's going to happen. Even if you do everything right, sometimes you can get hacked, something can happen. And it's really nice to have that backup to fall back on. So make sure to ask about their backups, and more specifically, how many can you have at once? Are they backing up the site files and the database, or just the site files? A lot of them don't do the actual database behind the site. How long are they going to keep those backups for you? Are they taken automatically, or is this a manual process, et cetera, et cetera? So I would definitely want to look into their backup process. One keyword that they throw around a lot is uptime. That's just literally how, I don't know, how much of the time is your website going to be up here? How much can they guarantee that your website is going to be up? And most of the big players out there are going to guarantee 99% uptime. That's what they say. It's kind of meaningless because they're averaging across all of their sites. And if you are a host like GoDaddy and you've got millions and millions and millions of sites, that means that your website, specifically your website, could be down for a month and they would still be at 99% uptime. So I tend to not put as much weight behind that as maybe it is marketed as, and want to look at some of the other features there. But they're really looking at reliability. A couple of words of warning here before we get going on the next topic here, and I'll get off my hosting soapbox. One is to watch out for introductory offers. A lot of the big hosting providers will do this. They'll say it's only $2 for the year or whatever crazy low number. And then as soon as that year is up or that contract is up, that price will jump way up. But by then you've already got your site on there. It's really difficult to move. That entails an entire process in itself, and you can get stuck paying a lot more than you thought that you would. And that ties into the next warning, and that is long contracts. A lot of hosting providers will try to entice you through discounts and other features to sign on to very long contracts. Hosting for a year, hosting for 2 years, hosting for 5 years. I've seen some longer. But then you are just stuck where you are, no matter what they do. If they change how they're running, I've seen one of the major hosting providers that I've worked with before changed up their business model this last year, and they went from one of the number one hosting providers I would recommend to everyone to just garbage. And I don't recommend it to anyone at all because they changed how they're doing things. But if you're stuck in a 2-year contract with them, there's nothing you can do but pay for it. Check reviews for the different services. As always, if you're looking at any business out there, you're thinking about working with them, especially since this is kind of a long-term commitment, whether it is a long-term contract or not. It is annoying to move, so you're probably going to be here for a while. See what other people are talking about, what other people are talking about in relation to this company and to this service. And finally, check for support. One of the big things that you'll see as soon as you start looking at reviews for hosting is you're going to see some of them have really, really, really bad support. Some of those big names, you have to sit on hold for an hour to then talk to someone on the other side of the globe that then doesn't know how to help you. And when your site is down or when there's a major problem happening, you want to be able to access someone for support. So really put a lot of time into looking for this, and I would value very good, reliable support higher than a lot of those metrics or a lot of those keywords that we were talking about even before. So in summary, don't cheap out on the hosting. It's really annoying to move. It's going to lead you to headaches years down the line, even just months down the line. Put a little bit of investment in there. You don't have to get the most expensive thing out there, but maybe don't go for the cheapest either. All right, Mike, that is it. That is my hosting spiel here. It's come up enough times that I wanted to go ahead and hit that again. Again, I do have an article that goes over all of that in much more depth on our website, and I'll put a link to it in the comments below. But please be careful with hosting.
Good stuff, Miles. Yes, 100%. I think we can summarize it in, you get what you pay for, right? And if you aren't willing to pay a little bit more a month, we're not talking about a lot of money, even if you get the top. I mean, there are some things that are super premium, but you can get what we consider the best for just a little bit more money, usually a month, and the results are exponentially better. And even if you think, man, I don't care about any of this stuff, I'm not a techie. If my site is up, it's okay. Well, think about what your customers go through, and you want them, just like when they walk into your store, to get the best impression they possibly can. And if it's slow, if it's clunky, that's not what's going to happen, and it's going to reflect poorly on your brand. But yeah, good stuff there, Miles.
Yeah, hopefully that was useful for someone out there. If you have any other questions on it, like I said, I just put that link in the comments there, so check out that article, or email us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. And if there's anything in there you want us to dive into more depth on or answer more specific questions, throw those questions in the comments. I'm seeing a couple of comments popping up here, primarily just talking about how bad Monday is. If you have any more specific questions as to not about the day of the week, please throw those in the comments below here. But hello, and thank you for commenting. All right, Mike, did you have anything on your end that you wanted to talk about today?
I got a whole lot of stuff over here, Miles. I think the only question is, what are we not going to talk about, because we're going to run out of time here. We're going to wrap this up here in the next 30 minutes. But yeah, let's get into some news, unless we got some questions down there that we
Again,
need to
comments
answer.
are just complaining about Monday. So let's make their Monday a little bit better and throw some good info out there.
Sounds good. Yeah, we don't create the calendar. We're just living in it, but we'll make do with what we got. All right. So yeah, let's talk about some news. Some big news, I think, at least, that could be a jumping off point for a larger conversation, happened last week. And that is that we got reports. We still don't know what exactly is going to be the end final result of this news, but we got some reports that Facebook is going to be changing its name. And it could be as soon as this week. I was just actually checking the wires here. They're supposed to release their third quarter earnings today, and I have not found that they have done that yet. So if somebody does find that, send it over, because that would be an interesting thing to talk about as well. But yeah, Facebook is going to apparently change the name of their company. Now, that doesn't mean that the Facebook app itself that most of us use regularly is going to change their name. It'll probably be the parent company will change its name from something other than Facebook, which currently also owns, of course, WhatsApp and Instagram and there's one other one, Oracle, maybe. Is that what the other company's called?
What,
I forget.
Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook.
They have WhatsApp.
They have WhatsApp. There's a fourth one that
They're not Oracle.
It's not Oracle. Yeah, that's something else. Okay. Anyhow, it's not really that important, to be honest. Orion, maybe that's it. I think it starts with an O. Anyways, that company will now be a parent company that'll have a different name. There's all kinds of rumors of what the name will be. No one really knows for sure, other than the fact that it'll probably have to do with this metaverse that we've been talking about the last at least few weeks. There's been quite a bit of chatter going on from Zuckerberg himself about this new project. They just hired 10,000 workers over in the European Union to basically build out the structure of this metaverse, and now they're changing the entire name of the company, apparently to recenter the focus along this new technology. And so I think it's worth discussing and unpacking here on several different levels. I mean, you have the most successful biggest social media platform of all time, basically telling us that social media is not the end all be all. And social media is not even going to be our main focus moving forward. We're going on to this whole other thing. And so, if you just back up and take a look at that statement that is being stated without actually being stated, it's quite profound, what they're saying here. And so
This all sounds like the lead up to a sci-fi flick, if you ask me.
Well, I'm going to get into that briefly, Miles, and we're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I do want to I figured let's back up even a little bit more and talk about a metaverse itself, and then I want you to explain a little bit about AR and VR and practical applications for it, and just kind of the differences in it. So I'm gonna set this on, hopefully on a tee nice and high for you to take a swing at. But yeah, so basically what Facebook is wanting to do is they wanted to create a virtual 3D world that is based on virtual reality. And so everyone is going to exist as an avatar, basically, in this virtual reality, and you'll be able to go to I'm putting real in quotes for those of you listening to the podcast later, places inside this universe and do all kinds of engaging with other people in. And I found this really interesting article from Computer World that is entitled, this is just came out at 3 a.m. this morning, actually. So this is hot off the press here. It's entitled, Will Zuckerberg's Metaverse Change Everything? Facebook wants to build the VR universe we all live and work in. Here's actually what's coming. And this gentleman, Mike Elgin, did a good job, I thought, kind of diving into this. So I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights of this. And then, like I said, we're going to have Miles kind of break it down for us. All right. So Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has been making news lately by talking about the metaverse. Facebook says it's the future of Facebook and the internet. He's so committed to the idea. He just hired 10,000 workers in the EU, and he's changing the name of the company. But are we all going to live and work in Facebook's metaverse? What is a metaverse? Author Neil Stephenson coined the term metaverse in his 1992 science fiction novel, Snow Crash. I think I need to buy that and give that one a read. In his telling, the metaverse is a virtual reality version of the internet where the alternative universe exists in a shared VR space using real-world concepts like roads, buildings, rooms, and everyday objects. People move around in this universe as avatars, which are 3D representations that can interact with other people through their avatars. Think about all those weird things that people create on Snapchat of themselves. Okay. The metaverse has also been a staple of cyberpunk fiction since the 1980s. And The Matrix, we're all familiar, I'm sure, with that movie, is a metaverse. The metaverse literary concept is universally dystopian, doesn't sound lovely, representing a kind of totalitarian capitalism in which people are compelled to live much of their lives in a fake world owned by a corporation. Yikes. For example, in Klein's book, everyone is so invested in a metaverse called the Oasis, where people not only play games, but also go to school, work, and pay their taxes, that the real world declines into squalor from neglect. Fiction's metaverse is bad, so why is Zuckerberg thinks this is good? So that's a very, very important question. Basically, what they say in this article is that his is not going to be a true metaverse, meaning it won't be an all-encompassing society, but it'll be something that Facebook creates for itself and its users only, meaning you have to opt into it, and it's going to be a closed platform. The author here calls it the Zuckerverse, sorry. But there was a couple of other interesting points here in this article that I wanted to bring out. And here later on, he gives 5 reasons on why Zuckerberg thinks that this is going to be such a big idea. And I thought that the second, third, and fourth were especially interesting. Here's the second one. Zuckerberg understands that in order to evolve social networking and interaction into the virtual realm, he's got to pivot to the company. His big moves, big announcements, and big investments reorient a world of employees, partners, investors, and users for the transition. Number 3, Zuckerberg and Facebook know that social networks, as they now exist, will eventually be replaced. Just as Facebook replaced MySpace, which replaced AOL, which replaced CompServe, which replaced BBS systems, no company dominating one social platform type has ever gone on to dominate the next. Facebook wants to be the first to dominate 2 generations of online social networks. And the 4th, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It makes sense to so loudly go so big on virtual spaces to scare away investment interests and startups looking to do the same thing. So basically, as I was just saying before, Zuckerberg is saying that social media, as we know it today, is going to go away. And really, this whole iteration of the internet that we have today is going to go away, is what they're saying. And he's making a very large bet that this VR metaverse, new version of the internet is going to be the thing that wins out, and that everyone, says, not everyone, obviously, but, the people that the market in general will say, this is what we want. So a huge bet there. But what does that mean for us as marketers? Well, it really drives home the point, Miles, that I think we're always trying to make to people, and that is, don't build your house on rented land. That these platforms are temporary, as the Fed likes to say about inflation. It's transitory, right? These things are in motion. It's not going to last forever. Unfortunately, I think the inflation is going to last longer than social media at this point. We'll talk about that maybe later if we don't run out of time. But the point being is, when we talked about this maybe a couple years ago, we talked about, yes, the technology exists for AR and VR, and all these things are built out. But who do you know right now that spends any amount of time in an AR or VR setting? And the answer is, other than maybe some of Miles's super nerdy Codia friends, nobody, right? Like, the market isn't there yet. And it's probably not going to be there 5 to 10 years from now. But what these guys are saying, I'm going to go quickly to Apple, and then I'm going to go back to Miles here, is that they're getting ready to get ready, and that this is coming probably faster than a lot of us think. Okay, the last thing I want to bring out of this for the discussion is Apple, because I thought this was an interesting point as well. The article here made why Apple's universe beats the Zuckerverse. It's one thing that Apple's hundreds of startups are toiling away to build the virtual spaces of the future, developing headsets, glasses, advanced graphics, modeling tools, networking tools, et cetera, et cetera. It's another thing to know that Apple is committed to it as well. The difference is that Facebook wants an alternative virtual universe. Apple wants to add the virtual to the real universe. Maybe this is what Miles can break down for us here. Apple CEO Tim Cook has said publicly that the AR, not VR, is the next big thing, superior to VR. A big idea like a smartphone. And Zuckerberg has also said that about the metaverse. He thinks that will, the hardware that they're building now at Facebook is eventually going to replace the smartphone that we all hold now, which, again, is a really profound statement. He sees major applications for AR in education, in consumers, and entertainment, and in sports. I see it in every business that I know anything about. That means you, if you're a business owner listening to this podcast or watching this show. Both companies are betting big on imposing visions. Will VR dominate, or will AR dominate? Will Zuckerverse, I can't say that with a straight face, or the Appleverse? Apple has hundreds of patents and is investing billions of dollars in developing the hardware and software platforms for the virtual spaces of tomorrow. The company has designed and built multiple prototypes, some with outstanding specs like dual 8K displays, LiDAR, and a host of cameras and biometric sensors. This is where it gets really freaky. The interesting and unique fact about Apple is that it intends to initially use VR goggles for AR applications. The user will see a real-time video of the real world with virtual objects inserted into that video. Apple is also reportedly working on AR glasses to look like ordinary glasses and can be worn all day, every day with prescription lenses. Okay, I'm almost getting through. This stuff just gets wild. All right. In a previous column, I detailed what we know about Apple's physical VR and AR glasses. Though the rogue timeline of these products is 2 years for the VR glasses and 5 years or more for the AR glasses. Apple's keeping plans close to the vest, yada, yada, yada. The most world-changing initiative in Apple's patents is a concept called the Bionic virtual meeting room. In a nutshell, this concept integrates hardware and software to have meetings with other people in a virtual context. Specifically, people are represented as avatars. Keep going back to that, which convey the facial expressions, mouth movements, body language, head tilts, and other gestures in real time. Just like Apple's Mimojos, but in 3D with rational spatial interaction. What this means is that the avatars can see other avatars with their attendant movements and interacting in real time. They can make eye contact, point, gesture, talk, and walk around. The sound is like a first-person shooter video game. The difference is 3D, biometric ID, very important for business meetings. Will full upper body real-time gesture mapping and real-time face mapping and a room and object mapping. Apple's patents also detail a host of biometric sensors for detecting emotion, which would be subtly reflected in facial expressions. Okay, wow, this thing can go on and on and on, but I'm just going to cut to the chase here.
Yeah.
While Apple's intentions barely registered with the public, they no doubt haunt Zuckerberg's nightmares. Apple's Bionic meeting room technology is social networking through avatars. Apple has better patents, better technology, better design chops, and better development tools, and a more trust among its user base. Apple's virtual meeting technology is poised to replace social networking, video conferencing, business travel, and professional conferences. Okay? In other words, this is a big effing deal, Miles. So I'm going to stop there because, like I said, we could go down a super rabbit hole into this. But I just want to stop there before we get too crazy with it. So basically, you have Facebook building out the metaverse and the VR, Apple building out a AR that is emplacing artificial reality or augmented reality into real reality, where Facebook is creating its own universe of a reality. And both of them say that they're basically going to replace all the ways that we know how to communicate today. Miles, is this all crazy talk or what's going on here?
Yeah, this is all crazy talk, and this is also reality. So I guess I do want to back up there to the very beginning and just think about Facebook as it stands now. If you get on Facebook just a few years ago, it was just a way to post some pictures and videos and interact with friends. You could message them directly, or you could put something up publicly that your entire group of friends would do, or you could create public groups of people with common interests and interact with them that way. Over the years, they've started adding other things to it. So you've got your watch list on there for taking in video, similar to something like YouTube. You've got your marketplace on there, which has really amped up in the last couple of years to create a full online marketplace, similar to any other online marketplace. You've got all of these different features jumping in there to kind of replicate every other type of online interaction that you have, to the point where Facebook can kind of exist as its own mini internet. Mm-hmm. It is the entire internet in one thing. And in some places that is the case. People just use it like that. They refer to Facebook in the same way that we refer to the internet or to a browser. And that's how they access the internet, is entirely through this single platform. So to me, knowing that these technologies exist, these AR and VR technologies exist, the logical next step is to create this virtual world that you can exist in, where you've got the virtual shops, you've got the virtual people, you've got the virtual groups, and you are just adding in this physical element of a body. You are incorporating yourself into that universe that is already kind of exists in Facebook. I think that it's kind of missing that really cool high-tech visual element that comes with the virtual reality. But functionally, it already is all of that. It already is its own little universe that people can totally exist in and operate in.
Mm-hmm.
This is just adding a really cool, really high-tech visual component on top of it and allowing you to interact with it in a much more natural and corporeal way. AR, or augmented reality, is something different. And I agree with the author of this article here in that I think that that is the future. I think there is a place for VR. I think it's going to be used in some stuff. I don't think that it's going to be, I don't think that people are going to completely replace their lives with this virtual thing. That does have a very dystopian overtone to it. And that doesn't even touch on Facebook's publicity problems. Everyone already thinks of them as some sort of dystopian nightmare, and now they're going to create their own universe, which maybe that's something to do with their rebranding here. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think that that's going to be nothing, but I don't think that that's going to take the world by storm there, and maybe the way that they're envisioning. Apple's plan, on the other hand, I definitely see being a next major evolution to all of these things. And we're already seeing elements of this, elements of the virtual jumping into the physical and elements of the physical jumping into the virtual over this last year. The whole pandemic time, people have been trying to do that in a number of ways. I think the first thing that came to mind was Amazon's grocery stores? I forget what they're calling them, but where you can walk in and just sort of virtually pick what you want, and it all gets bagged up and is ready for you when you leave.
Yeah,
where they're trying
Go, I believe, is what it's called.
So they're trying to combine some of the processes of the online shopping experience with a real world physical interaction, and replacing the ways that we do things now with these online function inspired methods here. So I definitely see that happening. I mean, we were talking about virtual meetings. We're already doing virtual meetings all the time now, or that was kind of weird a year ago. Now it's totally normal. Everyone's used to being on Zoom and Google Meet and all the other ones out there. The next step there being what I was hearing as basically I'm thinking of like Star Wars, where the Jedi Council is sitting there, and then you've got the one guy that couldn't be there, and he's a hologram version of him.
Right.
Where that sounds like a very natural evolution to me, where we've already proven over this last year that people will accept these kinds of changes and these kinds of updates. If you had, say, some glasses that you could wear, and that would allow you to look at a menu at a restaurant in a more robust and meaningful way than just text and images, but you could actually interact with it visually, that would be awesome. If you could have a phone call with someone and they're just standing right there in front of you. The rest of the room is totally normal, but they're standing right there in front of you. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure where the whole avatar thing comes in there and why that wouldn't just be, something a little bit more meaningful, or a little bit more literal there.
That's the part that creeps me out the most. I think
if we're
is the
creating
avatars.
that, well, then they had to bring up that biometric verification there, because how do you know that this avatar that's in front of you is the person that you think that you're talking to? Right. I was just talking with a client this morning about a technology we're going to be using in this application build that we're doing that allows us to create voiceovers of anyone. So if we can get you to talk into a mic for a half hour, then we can put that into this AI powered text to speech thing, write something out in a paragraph, put it in there, and then make that person say it audibly. So, that in combination with all the deep fakes and everything, like, this sounds like there's some serious security issues that would have to be worked out here. But in general, I think that stuff makes a whole lot more sense. The augmented reality side of things makes more sense to me. It sounds like something that people would be able to adopt and work into their existing lives. Because if you just want me to change how I'm doing something and maybe add something on top of it, especially if it adds some sort of convenience factor, it gives me more power there.
Yeah.
Then people will pick that up easily. If you're saying, I want you to replace your entire life with this silly little avatar virtual thing and lay there with virtual glasses and just exist in this plane of nothing, then no, I don't think so. I think that's why that lends itself to those dystopian sci-fi novels so easily. I understand
Mm-hmm.
where they're going with it, and that Facebook already does have that kind of all-encompassing existence there, and that this virtual reality version of it, like, it makes sense that they're wanting to go that way. But I do agree that Apple's got the better idea there, and they also have more means to actually do it, to
Mm-hmm.
execute this well and in a way that is enticing to people. If nothing else, Apple can make things look really good. And so if they can find a non-clunky way to put out something like this, and it's useful and it's convenient and it's not creepy or minimally creepy, then I think people are going to start picking that up really quick. And the adoption phase there is going to be faster than we know what to do with.
100%, Miles. Okay, well, I don't know if we got any questions on that or if we just completely freaked out the audience. But
we will see. Time will tell.
If there's not any questions, Miles, I'm going to keep rolling here to the next story that I just pulled up because it just hit the wires a little bit ago, but also has to do with Facebook. So if we don't have any questions, I'm just going to keep rolling into this. All right, breaking news. Breaking news here, folks. Facebook papers explode ahead of platform's earning report. Facebook was hit Monday by scathing reports from at least a dozen U.S. news outlets based on internal documents just hours before the company was to release its earnings report. The social media giant has faced a storm of criticism after former employee so-and-so leaked internal studies showing the company knew of potential harm. Reports Monday blamed CEO Mark Zuckerberg for the platform bending to the state censors in Vietnam. Facebook papers are so damning, so disturbing, so disgusting that they should lead to quick action at the federal level, tweeted out some law professor at Fordham. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. Okay. But yeah, as I mentioned before, Facebook is supposed to be, I don't know exactly what time that they're supposed to release their earnings, but at some point today, they're going to be releasing their third quarter earnings. We are also going to be this week watching out for earnings from Microsoft, Alphabet, which is Google, Apple, and Amazon, and they are all forecasted to be pretty gosh darn big, as they have been for
surprise,
as they have been for all of this year. So I just wanted to unpack this a little bit, Miles, and just kind of talk about some macroeconomic news and how that's going to affect our small businesses and our local businesses here in Douglas County. So so a couple different things. Obviously on the Amazon front, their earnings are really based on, the strong e-commerce sales, although e-commerce is, slowing down a little bit off of the, pandemic highs. It is certainly, if you look back to data from 2019, 2018, still exponentially higher. So that is really still just a massively growing sector that everybody needs to be investing in for their own business. But as we've been talking about off and on throughout the whole year, one of the big drivers for the profits that we're seeing in Facebook and Google specifically are their ad revenue numbers, which are being driven by higher prices in ad revenue. In ad costs. So I know a lot of people are doing budgets right now for 2022, and so this is a good time to be talking about this. And we don't ever like to sugarcoat things or BS people basically around here. So we're going to tell it like it is. And so you need to know that ad costs are going up. You are going to spend more. I mean, you always spend more in fourth quarter, but you're going to spend more next year on advertising than you probably ever have before, unless you drastically cut your advertising. And as we've talked before in the past, that's generally not a good idea. Now paring it down and maybe being smarter and maybe concentrating on, one or two platforms instead of 4 or 5 platforms is smart to do when you have rising costs. But taking away your your marketing voice. Your market voice is going to lead to less market share over time. And we know that during economic downturns, the people that actually advertise more will end up coming out with a lot more gains than the ones who cut back. And so that's something to consider. But there's no getting around it. That we're going to have to pay more than we were before, especially if we're using these kinds of platforms like Facebook and Google, because the prices themselves are going up. So what that means is we got to work smarter, not harder. We have to have better creative. We have to have better messaging. We have to have a better focus, and we have to do more work on the front end of planning out a campaign to make sure that we can still get the same or hopefully even a better ROI in the face of rising costs. The other thing that we've been talking about off and on for the better part of this year is just the macro inflationary cycle that the U.S. economy is in. And now we're really seeing the chickens come home to roost. Even people like the Fed Chairman Powell, who have been lying to us this entire year, saying, don't worry about it, it's just transitory. Now they're even saying, oh, actually, we're going to be dealing with this through 2022, which probably means 2024 because they're still lying, just not lying as much. So what does this mean? Well, it means for us as business owners, especially if you have hard costs, hard products that you are having to import and then resell, you're going to have massively rising costs that you're going to have to decide, am I going to absorb this or am I going to have to pass it on to customers? And I've been watching, as I'm sure we all have, the prices that we've been paying when we go anywhere these days, whether it's to the grocery store or to the restaurant. I saw one of my favorite restaurants just yesterday. The damn hamburger was $3 more than it was last time I'd gone there, right? And so a lot of business owners are struggling with this right now because they know that if I pass on too much of my cost to my consumers, they're not going to come. Right? I didn't go to that restaurant, even though I love that restaurant. I was like, I'm going to buy something else, right? Because I get more somewhere else. So that's obviously, let's not beat around the bush. That is the thing that everybody's struggling with right now. I'm a big believer that we can sell more on volume and not have to pass on, as much of those costs if we do it smartly and if we engage more with people. So Miles, in the last 2 minutes, I would like you to break down for people again with their own app. If you have a mobile app for your company, how can I use something like push notifications or a rewards program to get my current customers to come back more often and to spend more in terms of a basket size of a purchase when they do business with me if I invest in an app for my local business?
Mobile apps are a very powerful tool for customer retention and for upsells. Because as soon as someone downloads that app, now that's the trick there, getting them to download it that first time. But once you get it, then you have a direct line of communication to that customer. Mike was just talking about engagement there. You can do engagement in a number of ways. If you're posting on social media, if you're putting other advertisements out there, that's just a one-to-many relationship. So I'm saying something to 100 different people. If you have a mobile app, if you have that customer with your app on their phone, then you are talking directly to them. This at least seems more like a one-to-one kind of thing. When you pull out your phone and you have a message from some business on there, from a local business, I get a notification from my local coffee shop that I go to. It's much more personal, much more meaningful. I'm more likely to look at it and much more likely to retain that information. Mm-hmm. Not to mention your logo and your branding is all over those push notifications and everything that's happening there. So at the very least, you're getting that subliminal messaging of putting your brand in front of them over and over and over and over again. But then you have the ability to engage with them on that one-on-one level. That means that you can entice them to come in more frequently. You can entice them to buy something a little bit extra, to take that one little upsell there, so that when they weren't necessarily thinking of coming in, and then buzz, their phone goes off, and there's your message to them. They decide, oh, you know what, I didn't realize I wanted that, but now I want that, so now I'm going to go get that. And then, you know, while I'm there, if I spend an extra $2, then I get the extra reward through the app. Or if I sign up for the rewards program, that allows you to communicate them even more effectively, because at that point, maybe you've gotten their email or their phone number. Then you can send them emails, you can do text message marketing, any other ways of communicating with this person, again, in a very one-on-one, intimate and meaningful way that's not just you shouting to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get an app out there, and if you can get your customers download it the first time, then you have one of the most direct lines of communications to those customers, along with several robust features in there that allow for things like push notifications and loyalty programs and all sorts of other things to help you get people in more frequently and increase that average sale there amongst people with this app.
100%.
So, well, that was a good, you know, sort of real action step there to take at the end. I don't want people to totally leave in despair here. There's a lot that you can do. You know, Mike was saying that, you know, prices are going up, advertising getting more expensive, everything's getting more expensive. But I think that, as I've said several times in this show, we as small businesses are small and nimble, and we can be smart if we use the tools at our disposal, if we use all the things that we talk about here on this show every week, and we're just a little bit smart on everything, we can outmaneuver a lot of the bigger players out there. We can move quicker, we can jump on things as they come up. And, you know, maybe we can use this economic downturn, maybe we can use this crazy time that we're in to actually gain some yardage here rather than lose it.
100%.
We just got to be smart about it. But, you know, that's why we're here answering your questions, hopefully putting out some good information here. If you like what we did here, if you like some of this information, please give us a like, share, subscribe, send this out to your friends. If you think that you know anyone that would be, that would you know, find this useful, find this helpful, send them to us, let them know. We're live streaming every Monday, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. We'll be back next Monday at 11 to answer some more questions. But for now, I think we're signing off.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Mike. All right. We'll see you again next week. Thanks, everyone.